So, as we had talked about earlier in today's show, we had Elliotte Friedman make an appearance on Donnie and Dolly. Now, of course, the bigger conversation that most people were referring to in regards to Friedman on Donnie and Dolly was his comments made about Luke Gazdic and the entire discussion as to him not dealing with the haters in the right way. But, aside from Luke Gazdic, Friedman did provide some other updates in regards to Canucks stuff, which I wanted to go out there and talk about in this video. We've got two tweets to look at, with a bunch of information in each, starting out with this one from Rick Dhaliwal. This first tweet goes over something we had talked about earlier in today's show as well, but this is what Friedman says about the Vancouver Canucks trying to get Martin Necas. It's a harder deal to do with no Pettersson in the deal like last time. The Carolina Hurricanes will want top prospects. Filip Hronek won't do it. It's a hard deal to do. Compelt Elliotte Friedman on YouTube and Donnie and Dolly. Now, here's the thing about Martin Necas. We had already talked about this earlier in today's show, but we also discussed about this a few months ago when the initial Vancouver Canucks Necas conversations had emerged, and there was an idea floating around saying that the Canucks were asked about Elias Pettersson. Now, of course, that kind of got the fan base into a panic when it came out, because Pettersson is quite literally supposed to be the best player on the team. But we can relax a little bit now that Pettersson has his contract and he is not going to be included in these kinds of conversations anymore, at least for the foreseeable future. But also with the Carolina Hurricanes wanting prospects instead of main pieces, not wanting a guy like Filip Hronek, it starts to open the door to Tom Willander as an option, Jonathan Lekkerimäki as an option, and for the Vancouver Canucks, I guess you could say, hey, if you're interested in trading for Martin Necas, would you be okay with sacrificing a few really good years in the future of Jonathan Lekkerimäki, for example? Like, if you trade Lekkerimäki in a package for Martin Necas, you are essentially taking Lekkerimäki and fast-forwarding his progression a few years down the line. Because, I'll say it right here, if Jonathan Lekkerimäki becomes a player who is like Martin Necas right now, I think you're really happy with that. So, if you believe that you're more so fitted to contending right now and you would rather not wait for Lekkerimäki to become that good, then you would have to trade him away, and the price to acquire that kind of an asset might be like a third or a second or something. It's Lekkerimäki in a second for Martin Necas, or something even more crazy than that. Maybe it's a first, who really knows? So, because Carolina does not want Hronek, it makes things a lot more difficult, but we will see where things go. As Saravelli did say earlier yesterday, he does feel like there could be a trade done as soon as before Saturday, even. So, Canucks fans, Flames fans, Blue Jackets fans, that's going to be a lot to talk about. But what I also wanted to do was go over this other tweet made by Rick Dhaliwal. Friedman says this about the Vancouver Canucks free agents. On Tyler Myers, the Canucks know what the deal is going to look like. They know the number on Zadorov, but I'm not convinced they can get there. On Lindholm, they'd love to have him back, but that is so hard to do. So, Friedman isn't really adding anything new here per se, but it is affirming to hear from him that, yeah, the Vancouver Canucks and Tyler Myers most likely are on the same page. They both know what the deal is going to look like. The way it's spoken about here and on the show makes it really seem like an inevitability at this point. Not a will they, won't they, not a will he sign, won't he sign. It's, okay, when? Like, what's the dollar amount? They've got it figured out. Tyler Myers is probably going to come back at some sort of a discount, and as I had said in the previous few videos, I kind of like that a lot, so yeah, at least there's one, right? It's like 2020. Benning can't lose out on Toffoli, Tanev, and Markstrom in the offseason, can he? And then he does exactly that. At least Patrick Allvin is putting his cards in the right spot. He is making the acquisitions that you can get. But when it comes to the other two guys, let's talk about Nikita Zadorov for a little bit, because it was discussed here that Zadorov might as well have priced himself out. Even Friedman is saying now that he doesn't know if the Vancouver Canucks will be able to get that done. That, of course, is not new either, because a lot of people have already formed this idea that, hey, there probably is not too much guarantees that Zadorov can be back, especially considering the amount of money he'll probably be able to get on the free agent market. But as he had spoken out in his interview with Ian McIntyre the other day, Zadorov really likes it here, so who knows if he's going to be willing to take some sort of a discount to make things work salary-wise. Even Dan Murphy on Sportsnet, he went out there and went golfing yesterday with JT Miller and Nikita Zadorov. Negotiations to get Z to stay, he said. And then he said, yeah, I did some good work, it's out of my hands now. You can see Murph, JT, Zadorov, and then somebody else, I'm not too familiar with who that is, on the far left. But Zadorov, I mean, he's still hanging out here, he's still spending time with the folks on the Canucks and in the Canucks media for some reason, which is great. I mean, it's not something you would have predicted to see, but it is nice to see, regardless. So, Dan Murphy, hopefully you put in a good word there for Nikita Zadorov, Big Zed, on the golf course, because if that guy's able to come back due to your negotiating skills, then hey, Dan Murphy's going to be a hero in this city, right? Same concerns always bring themselves up if you're signing Nikita Zadorov. Are you signing the Nikita Zadorov that played in the playoffs last year? And are you expecting that kind of a profile to be available to you for all 82 games? Does he not regress to some sort of mean? Does he go back to being just okay like he was in the regular season? Or is he going to be exceptional every night like he was in the playoffs this season? That's the question. What's the price tag on that? There are a lot of ways you can navigate that sort of a discussion, but that's the update on Nikita Zadorov. And then for Elias Lindholm, Friedman says he doesn't really think it's going to happen. It would be so hard to do. They would love to have him back, though, which is totally understandable. Lindholm was an absolute monster for Vancouver in the 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, the money is going to be tight. And because he already rejected, I believe it was an $8-something million deal, AAV-wise, with the Calgary Flames, I wouldn't be surprised if there was any desperation, maybe the right word to say here in the Lindholm camp. Hey, we had this opportunity to get all this money from Calgary, we rejected it because we thought we'd be able to get more, and now we're worth less. That sucks. And there's sort of a bet on yourself mentality that you could say was present in that initial situation, but in a way it did not validate itself because unfortunately Lindholm didn't have the best regular season. His playoffs was great. But then again, same question is brought up with Zadorov. If you're signing a guy based off of a small sample size in the playoffs, how much is that worth when you compare it to what he had done in the regular season? Lindholm has not been as effective in the regular season in multiple years, ever since Tkachuk and Gaudreau left, pretty much. When he was playing with Huberdeau and all those guys, he wasn't really all too good. So things certainly have been looking down for Lindholm. I could understand if his desire really is to just get as much money as he can. And unfortunately for Canucks fans, it does not seem like the Canucks would be able to do that and get the amount of money that Lindholm feels would be appropriate in some sort of an extension. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about all these comments made by Elliotte Friedman, the update on Martin Necas, how they don't want Filip Hronek as a return, how Carolina would want prospects instead. If it is that, do you go Willander? Do you go Lekaramaki? What other things do you think about sending away? We had talked about Josh Bloom yesterday. Really great player in the Memorial Cup, winning for Saginaw. Is he somebody that you think about? I mean, they traded Riley Stillman to get him, so maybe that would be selling a bit high there, but still, there are other prospects in the Canucks system that you could be dangling around to the Carolina Hurricanes. What are your thoughts on those negotiations? What are your thoughts on Tyler Myers? What are your thoughts on Nikita Zadorov? And, of course, Elias Lindholm. Elliotte Friedman had the scoops. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.